Have you ever heard the sound of water flowing in the canal at night in District 4 of Ho Chi Minh City, where winding canals meander like veins through the city? There is a small, ramshackle house where the three members of Nguyen Thi Tang Nan's family struggle to get by. This house is not a place to live, but a place to survive. A cramped room, barely 10 square meters, its corrugated metal roof full of holes, letting rain leak down onto cracked cement floors, forming tiny puddles glistening in the streetlights that slip through the door crack. The mold-stained walls peel in large flakes, as if the house itself was weeping, telling stories of all the pain it has witnessed. A rusted iron bed creaks with every toss and turn, like the moan of a trapped soul. A small altar, where Nan's mother's photo is placed. Her eyes in the picture seem to always watch the family members, unblinking, as if trying to say something. And a few old plastic chairs scattered in the corner, one with a broken leg, wobbling like their lives. That's all this family owns. Every night, the musty smell from the canal wafts in, mixing with the incense smoke from the altar, making the air heavy like lead. The sound of water flowing beside the canal is sometimes as gentle as a lullaby, sometimes roaring when the rain comes, as if telling stories no one dares to hear. Nan, a 22-year-old girl, skinny, eyes bright, but always shadowed by worry, grew up in persistent poverty. She often sat by the door, staring at the pitch-black canal where the moonlight shattered on the water's surface, thinking about the days when her mother was still alive. Her mother, Miss Lan, was once a gentle but weary woman, always singing her sorrowful folk lullabies, her voice blending into the sound of flowing water. Her mother died when Nan was just 10, during a great storm, when the canal's waters rose and flooded the house. People said she slipped and was swept away by the current, but Nan didn't believe it. She remembered that night clearly. Her mother stood by the door, hair soaking wet, owl's eye clinging to her body, whispering something into the darkness, as if she knew her fate. Since then, Nan often dreamed of her mother. In her dreams, her mother stood by the canal, her owl's eye tattered, wet hair stuck to her face, her eyes profoundly sad, whispering, "Nan, don't go. This house." Her voice was not comforting, but like a warning, like a curse. Nan would wake up with her head pounding, her shirt drenched in cold sweat. She looked over at her father, Mr. Ming, sleeping on an old plastic chair, his worn, frayed t-shirt soaked in sweat from long days pushing the pho cart under the sun. His back hunched. His veiny hands worked from early morning till midnight, only hoping to earn enough money for medicine for Nan's eldest sister, Hong, who had suffered from lung disease since childhood. Every time Hong coughed, her dry hacking echoed through the house like a blade slicing into Nan's heart. Nan didn't want to stay. To her, that house was a cage, trapping her in poverty and despair. Every sound of water was a reminder of poverty. Every crack in the wall was a wound in her heart. She wanted to fix the roof so her father wouldn't have to use a worn-out tarp to block the rain, wanted to buy better medicine for Hong, and wanted all three of them to live with some dignity. But how? A 22-year-old girl, uneducated, penniless, with only her hands and a heart full of longing. One day, the broker appeared, like a ray of light in the darkness. She wore a red silk owl's eye, her hair tied in a high bun, a sweet smile on her lips, but eyes as cold as a snake watching its prey. She placed in front of Nan a photo of Kim Hyun-jun, a 39-year-old Korean man living in Jeju. "He's rich," the broker said firmly. "He'll give you a new life, a sunlit house by the sea, money, a future, all you've ever dreamed of. Nan held the photo, her heart pounding. In the photo, Hyunjun had a chiseled face, thin lips, and deep, lifeless eyes. She told herself it was just the lighting, but inside, an unease rose, as if someone was whispering in her ear, "Don't believe." She thought of her father, of the nights he coughed from the cold, of Hung, who had to lean against the wall whenever she had trouble breathing, her lips turning purple. "If I don't go, who will save this family?" she asked herself. But when she put the photo down, a cold wind blew through, making the altar candle flicker as if it was about to go out. Mr. Ming sat on the old plastic chair, his hands trembling, his voice hoarse. "Nan, I sense a bad omen. Don't go, child. I'd rather be poor, rather die than lose you." Hong, though frail, held her sister's hand, her voice quivering. "You've only seen him in a photo. How do you know who he is? How do you know he's not a demon?" Nan smiled, but it was a forced smile, trying to hide the fear in her heart. "I'll learn Korean. I'll try," she said, trying to sound resolute. "I promise I'll come back, bring money to fix the house, and buy medicine for my sister." But that night, she dreamed again. Her mother stood in the corner of the house, said nothing, just pointed to the mirror on the wall. Nan looked into the mirror, saw herself, but the eyes weren't hers. Those eyes were deep, like the night sea, as if they had witnessed something horrifying. She startled awake, screamed, but all she could hear was the sound of the canal water, as if laughing at her. Nan had chosen her path, but she didn't know that the rickety house was the only place truly safe. Darkness awaited her in Jeju, lurking in the dreams, in the mirror, in the water's whispers by the canal, and in the cold stare of Kim Hyun-jun in the photograph. Nan's wedding took place in a hurry inside a small restaurant in District 4. 3 Vietnamese-Korean couples, all strangers, sat facing each other under the gaze of the broker. There were no flowers, no celebrations, only cold silver rings and fake congratulations. Hyun-jun, Nan's groom, was tall, dressed in black, looked polite, but his eyes were cold as stone, without a hint of emotion. When Nan put the ring on his finger, her hand trembled. The cold metal touching her skin felt like a warning. She heard a faint laugh, as if coming from somewhere in the room. She looked around, heart pounding, but no one was laughing. The guests, the broker, even Hyun-jun, all sat silently, as if that laugh only existed in her mind. The broker, with her fake smile, handed Nan a thick envelope of money, whispering, "When you get there, behave. His family is not normal." Nan asked back, her voice trembling, "Not normal how? What do they do?" But the broker only smiled, a smile hiding a horrifying secret. She turned away, leaving Nan with a growing sense of unease, as if she had just signed a contract with the devil. That night, in a shabby hotel in District 1 before flying to Korea, Nan couldn't sleep. She sat on the old bed, its springs creaking, looking out the window where the streetlights flickered. She dreamed again, but this time it wasn't her mother who appeared. A different woman appeared, wearing a torn wedding dress, long hair covering her face, standing in a dark room. The woman lifted her head, revealing deep eyes like 2 black holes swallowing the light. She whispered in Korean, her voice icy, "You won't escape. Like me." Nan woke up with a start, heart pounding, sweat soaking her body. She ran to the door, wanting to go home, to her father, to her sister Hong. But the hotel door felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and outside, the roar of airplanes pulled her toward fate. The plane took off, carrying Nhan to Jeju. She dreamed of a sunlit house by the sea, but when the plane landed, all she saw was a gray sky, and the sea wasn't blue like in the photo, but black, full of roaring waves. Nhan didn't know she had just stepped into a house where dark secrets waited. Kim Hyun-jun's apartment was on a small, quiet street. The windows covered the thick curtains that never opened, even though the sea was only a few steps away. Inside, the white painted walls had yellowed, stained blotches like faded faces, staring intently. The furniture was sparse: a chipped wooden table, a few rusted metal chairs, and an old bed whose springs creaked every time Nhan lay down. On the wall, a crooked cross hung, like a sign of unease. Every corner in the room was steeped in the smell of stale cigarettes and something else, a faint trace of blood that made Nhan shiver every time she stepped in. The life of a foreign husband was not as simple as what Nhan had been told. Hyun-jun worked as a financial auditor for a small company in Jeju, handling contracts related to tourism, the island's main industry. His job required meticulousness, but was also full of pressure, as the contracts often involved large sums and uncompromising partners. He had once dreamed of becoming a chief accountant, but career failures had turned him bitter and quick-tempered. When Nhan first arrived in Jeju, Hyun-jun at first treated her with a cold curiosity. In the early days, he acted polite, but it was a fake politeness, like someone trying to hide their true nature. He took Nhan around the apartment, showed her how to use the gas stove and washing machine, but his voice was always so flat, emotionless. "You must do the housework properly," he said, his eyes never leaving her, as if assessing. Nhan, with her limited Korean, could only nod, trying to please him. But whenever she made a mistake, like folding clothes the wrong way, or cooking food that didn't suit his taste, Hyun-jun wouldn't yell. He would only look at her with cold eyes, as if she were a worthless object. Nhan lived in that apartment, but she didn't belong to it. Each day she cleaned, she cooked, but always felt like someone was watching. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Kim, was a terrifying ghost. Thin and frail, her silver hair pulled tight, her face deeply lined as if carved by a knife. Her eyes were pitch black, unblinking, as if they could devour Nhan whole every time she erred. She spoke Korean fast, her voice sharp as a blade, and Nhan, with her limited vocabulary, could only bow her head, trembling. Once, Nhan broke a porcelain bowl, shards scattered across the floor. Mrs. Kim stood, stepped closer. So close, Nhan could feel her icy breath. She didn't yell. She only whispered, "You won't live long, like the last girl." Nhan didn't understand it at all, but she knew the word die in Korean. From then on, every time she passed by Mrs. Kim, it felt like walking past a grave. The apartment had a locked room with a heavy rusted iron door that always radiated a chill. Mrs. Kim forbade Nhan to ever go near it, but every night, Nhan heard sounds from there. Soft scratching, like nails on wood, then whispers, like someone pleading for help. She tried to ignore it, but the noises etched themselves into her mind, robbing her of sleep, leaving her with dark circles under her eyes. One day, while Mrs. Kim was out, Nhan couldn't take it anymore. She trembled as she took out the old key she had found in Hyun-jun's drawer and opened the door. Inside was a small altar, thick with dust, with a photo of a Korean girl whose eyes were exactly like the one in Nhan's dreams. Beneath the photo was an old wedding dress, stained with dark red. like dried blood. Nhan trembled, panicked, slowly realizing the tragedies happening around her about the woman who kept appearing in her dreams. She stumbled out, slammed the door, heart racing. From that moment on, her life sank deeper into darkness. She began to see a figure in the foggy mirror in the living room. Always behind her, long hair, torn wedding dress, but when she turned around, there was no one. Each night, the dream of the woman in the torn dress became clearer. She always stood in the locked room, pointing at Nhan, speaking in Korean. "He killed me, and he'll kill you too." Gradually, Nhan began to believe there was a curse in this house. She was terrified of her husband, her mother-in-law, and the very apartment she was living in. During drunken nights, her husband would constantly shout the name Ji-yoon, the name of his previous wife, and look at Nhan like he wanted to tear her apart. She only knew that his first Korean wife had died under mysterious circumstances. One night, Nhan suddenly woke up, her heart pounding, and in the dim darkness, she saw Hyun-jun standing at the foot of the bed, holding a kitchen knife, its blade gleaming under the bedside lamp. He whispered, "You're not her, but you'll die like her." Nhan couldn't believe it was real. She curled up, holding her breath, clutching the blanket, praying this was just a dream. He stepped closer, eyes locked on her like a bloodthirsty predator, lifting the knife high as if to stab. In the moment, she shut her eyes, waiting for death. He suddenly turned away, leaving Nhan trembling, alone in the corner. She didn't understand what he wanted, always acting like a demon. Strangely, the next morning, he behaved as if nothing had happened, like a different person. But Nhan knew that something dark inside him was growing, and she was facing a deadly nightmare that could end her life at any moment. And so, in a foreign land, Nhan lived like a shadow, with no friends, no language. Every time she called home, she lied to her father, saying she was happy. But behind those forced words, her voice faltered, tears streaming down her face. She only wished she could return to the shabby house by the canal in Vietnam. Every creak of the wooden floor, every gust of wind through the cracks felt like Ji-yoon's laughter, reminding Nhan, "You can't escape." Nhan tried everything to change her fate. She struggled to learn Korean, tried to please Mrs. Kim, but nothing improved. She still had to face her fears. She trembled every time she passed the mirror, afraid the figure would step out. She jumped at every scratching sound from the locked room, fearing the door would open. And she was horrified every time she looked into Mrs. Kim's eyes, because those eyes were exactly like Ji-yoon's in the photo. After a night of restless, haunted sleep, the next morning, Nhan woke feeling dizzy, constantly nauseous. She was pregnant. Fear and hope mixed inside her. She thought the child a ray of light in the darkness. She hoped that once she had a baby, Mrs. Kim and her husband would treat her better. But when she joyfully told Mrs. Kim, the woman's eyes flashed cold. Nhan's heart sank. Trembling, she ran into her room, clutching her belly, then burst into uncontrollable tears. She pitied herself and her unborn child. Would it have to be born in this haunted house? Even in daylight, the cold darkness of the room wrapped around her and the unborn child, squeezing them tight. Through sobs, Nhan whispered to the baby growing inside her, "My baby, I'll protect you." take you back to Vietnam, back to Grandpa. But once again, her hope was quickly crushed. When Hun Jun found out that Nhan was pregnant, not only was he not happy, he was furious. He shouted, "You think you deserve to carry my child? You're just trash." He smashed his wine glass, shards flying across the floor, glittering like eyes in the darkness. She was devastated. In a dark corner of the apartment, Mrs. Kim, with pitch-black eyes, watched the scene unfold. She whispered, "It must disappear, like Ji-yoon." Nhan couldn't understand why Hyun-jun and his mother had brought her here when they clearly despised her existence and seemed to be searching for a way to destroy her life. Nhan continued living in fear. That night, she heard the scratching from the locked room again, clearer than ever, as if Ji-yoon was calling. In her dream, Ji-yoon appeared wearing a torn wedding dress, clutching her belly with a large, still bleeding wound. She looked at Nhan and said, "He killed my baby, and he'll do the same to yours." Ji-yoon's voice echoed, and Nhan woke up, drenched in sweat, her hands wrapped tightly around her belly. From that moment she knew, if she stayed in that house, she would die. She couldn't survive in a place filled only with cold stares and whispered curses. The thought of escape began to grow in her mind, to save her baby, and to save herself. One night, while Mrs. Kim was away and Hyun-jun was drunk beyond reason, Nhan gathered what little money she had, packed a few clothes, and fled the haunted house. She had no documents, she couldn't speak Korean fluently, and had no one to ask for help. She reached Busan, wandering the streets with a vacant look in her eyes. At night, she slept in market corners. During those moments, she kept thinking of her family's makeshift house near the canal. Moldy, poor. But it had warmth, it had love, it had a place to rest. After days of roaming, a kind woman offered her illegal work at a small nail salon. Each day, she worked diligently and then held her belly, whispering to her child, "As long as I earn enough money, I'll bring you home." She grew stronger than ever before, but fear always lurked nearby. No matter where she went, she still saw the ghostly bride, reflected in mirrors at the salon, shimmering in puddles on the street. A whisper always echoed in her ears. "You can't escape. Don't even try." Nhan's belly grew larger with each passing day, but because of her undocumented status, she didn't dare go to the hospital. Though the pain in her abdomen worsened, she never had a checkup. She didn't know if her baby was healthy or not. She was drowning in helplessness. Feeling sorry for her, a woman from the salon introduced her to Kim Tae-kyun, a Korean man in his 40s, unmarried, who said he could help her find a place to stay. During their first meeting, Nhan saw his gentle smile and kind-looking face. But something strange caught her attention. His eyes. They were exactly like Hyun-jun's. Cold as stone. Nhan hesitated. She lay awake all night thinking, but she had no other choice. She needed a safe place for her baby, and she consoled herself. Maybe he simply wanted a wife and child, and would treat her kindly. The next morning she packed her things and left with Tae-kyun. But Tae-kyun didn't take Nhan to a home. Instead, he brought her to a rundown motel in the outskirts of Busan, room 208, on the night of November 30th, 2014. The room was small and old, its walls peeling, the air thick with mold and the stench of alcohol. Inside was an old bed, a filthy blanket, and a crooked wooden table with a bottle of liquor and a broken glass on top. Nan felt a sense of dread. Stepping into the room was like stepping into hell once more. Still, she tried to stay calm. She walked in, sat on the bed, curled up holding her belly. Tae-kyun sat beside her, pouring himself a drink, speaking softly. "Don't be scared. I'm here to help you." That gave Nan a small sense of comfort. He kept drinking. By the fourth glass, his eyes changed. His voice wavered, trembling. He began calling her Ji-yoon. His gaze haunted. Ji-yoon, Ji-yoon. He muttered again and again. Nan didn't understand what was happening. Panic overtook her. She stood and ran for the door, but he blocked her path. From underneath the bed, he pulled out a kitchen knife that glinted in the dim light. He screamed, "You can't leave me! You and that baby can't live!" Nan struggled, trying to shield her belly. She cried out, "Please don't hurt my baby!" But Tae-kyun, now seemingly possessed, stabbed her again and again. Blood soaked her shirt, poured onto the floor. In her final moment, Nan saw Ji-yoon standing by the window, her blood-stained wedding dress clinging to her body, holding an invisible child. Ji-yoon smiled and whispered, "Now you are one of us." Then Nan collapsed, still clutching her belly, trying to protect the child who never had a chance to be born. The next morning, Korean police found Nyan's body in room 208, dried blood staining the wooden floor. Tae-kyun hadn't fled. He was still in the room. The police arrested him and brought him in. He claimed he remembered nothing, only that he woke up beside her lifeless body. This strange case spread through Korean media. People in Busan whispered to each other, Nyan wasn't the first victim. Ji-yoon, Hyunjun's previous wife, had died the same way, while pregnant, stabbed by Hyunjun himself. And before Ji-yoon, there had been other brides. All of them swallowed by the curse of darkness. In District 4, Ho Chi Minh City, Nyan's father, a man with deep-set eyes and a weathered face, sits by the canal, holding tightly the portrait of his daughter. His hands trembled, calloused by the years brushing over Nyan's face in the photograph. He knows nothing of the curse, nothing of Ji-yoon. He only knows that his daughter promised to come back, but she never did. His youngest daughter once dreamed of a better life, pulling her family out of poverty, but she became trapped in the darkness of a gloomy house in Jeju, where secrets and blood had seeped into every wall. His heart is filled with bitterness over what happened to his little girl. If only he hadn't let her go to Korea that day. The dream of a new life had claimed the precious life of a Vietnamese girl in a foreign land. In this story, many ask the question, why did Tae-kyun, a stranger, deliver the final blow to Nyan? Tae-kyun appeared like a savior with a warm smile, promising to help Nyan find a safe place for her unborn child. But Tae-kyun was not a normal man. He was a puppet in the hands of darkness, the same darkness that had once controlled Hyunjun and his mother. The curse of Ji-yoon, the spirit of Hyunjun's first wife, did not only haunt Nyan, it sought out the weak-willed, those vulnerable to control, those carrying buried rage or guilt. Tae-kyun was a man tormented by personal failures and social pressure to preserve family honor, making him the perfect target for Ji-yoon's vengeful spirit. He no longer saw Nyan, he saw Ji-yoon, the woman he may have heard about through chilling stories whispered in Busan about a cursed house in Jeju. In his delusion, Tae-kyun believed Nyan was Ji-yoon, returned to mock him, to challenge the fragile control he clung to. The kitchen knife in his hand, glinting under the flickering neon light of the motel. became the instrument of the curse. This film is a rewritten story based on a real-life case involving a Vietnamese woman named Ngo Thi Nga from Haiphong, who was living in Hung Chion District, Kang Won Province. She was murdered by her Korean husband, Ông Chon, born in 1977, who later committed suicide in 2014. Fortunately, in this case, their 5-month-old child survived. Many people expressed sorrow and pointed out that such tragedies may result from the financial pressures faced by many Korean men, cultural differences, or the psychological disorders experienced by foreign brides. This story also serves as a warning for many foreign brides when deciding to entrust their lives to a stranger in a foreign land. They must thoroughly understand the background of their partner. More importantly, they must equip themselves with basic knowledge such as language, cultures, perspective, and agreements to avoid falling into the spiral of misfortune. Thank you for listening to today's story.